Just to kind of orient you as to where we are, behind me is the Capitol building. They are heading in the direction of the White House, which of course has been ground zero for the protests here in Washington over the past week. The states that they are raising objections to are solely states that Trump lost. Rules were changed by other means in other states, including North Carolina, for example, which Donald Trump won. But lawmakers aren't raising objections about North Carolina, for example.
Foster says her guiding light as a photographer is celebrating the person who is in front of the lens. This shoot was no different.
They've installed these large fences really surrounding all of Capitol Hill, creating what amounts to a green zone in the middle of the nation's capital. Now, this ruling has also prompted renewed calls from progressives within the New York congressional delegation, including Congressman Jerry Nadler, to expand the court, adding additional justices to try to, in their view, balance out this current 6-3 majority. One area where the two leaders may agree to disagree, if they even bring up the topic at all during their meeting here at the Vatican, is abortion. Whereas Pope Francis continues the Catholic tradition of calling it murder, Biden publicly advocates for access. You would be a no still on BIF right now? Have you chosen ambition over your values?
I've chosen my values and I've chosen my constituents.
Given the president's symptoms so far, the latest report we saw from the doctor, do you have any concerns about his prognosis and his long-term recovery? She was clearly very emotional throughout the course of these remarks, kind of tying this rather dramatic and historic thread, going from the dreams of a slave to saying very collectively in her remarks that we've made it, all of us have made it. 9.4%. Why is that an important figure, Tim? Because 15% is the amount you need statewide to start getting statewide delegates. So if he can't get to a viable point in this state, why is he spending all this money? Is it a worthwhile investment? This is a sign that is sitting right next to one of these flattened homes. It reads, "Yes, we need help. God bless America." And so that begs the question, what happens to these families now? Who will help them? This is not the first time a North Carolina state gobbler has been spared the oven courtesy of the President of the United States. The last time was back in 2009. This tradition of pardoning turkeys, by the way, dates back to the George H.W. Bush era.
I would argue that we all screwed up.
New York Democrats visibly angry after Senator Joe Manchin torpedoed their long-sought climate investments. The West Virginian reportedly telling Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer that he would not back the environmental spending as part of a special legislative package.
To hold back on that effort is unacceptable. It is damaging.
Manchin previously derailed talks late last year before negotiations eventually resumed on a scaled-down measure. Democrats need his buy-in to pass anything on a party-line vote in the evenly split Senate through a maneuver known as reconciliation. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the White House should have taken more aggressive executive action when talks lapsed before to send a message: don't waste the president's time.
We should have taken a bit of a different tack, particularly after December, and just the extraordinary betrayal of the president by Senator Manchin. Carrots are good, but when people violate their word, sticks are important too.
Regarding Schumer's handling of the negotiations, his New York colleagues defended the veteran lawmaker.
With a 50-50 deadlock in the Senate, there was no room for anyone to fall off. So it was a difficult assignment.
I think Senator Schumer is dealing with the hand that he's been dealt with in an effective fashion.
Progressives are now leaning on President Biden to act unilaterally, something he promised to do in a statement saying he would take strong executive action to, quote, meet this moment.
But these lawmakers agree executive action will only go so far. Their message? Vote.
We absolutely need 2 or 3 more senators or 4 or 5 more senators to put us in a position where we can move forward with a reconciliation package.
Quite seriously, much of the fate of our planet comes down to November.
In Washington, Kevin Frey, New York 1. There's no shortage of sights and sounds at the Franklin County Fair, from the rides to the livestock competitions. Beef farmer Jack Tierney has lived in the town of Malone near the Canadian border since the 1970s and has high praise for his congresswoman.
I think Congresswoman Stefanik is fantastic. I could use 10 more just like her.
But he was not always so eager to offer a ringing endorsement, especially when she was first elected.
I can remember calling her office and saying, we don't need a Republican that's going to act like a Democrat. We need a true conservative, and we don't need wishy-washy or rhino Republicans.
One of the reasons he likes Representative Elise Stefanik now, he says, her willingness to defend former President Donald Trump. When Trump first became a candidate, Stefanik kept her distance. She now is one of his staunchest advocates in Congress. She proudly calls herself Ultra MAGA. Other voters have noted an evolution, too, like St. Lawrence County farmer Russ Finley.
There you go.
In 2018, he launched a quixotic primary challenge against Stefanik, labeling her a Republican in name only. Now he's a believer.
Over the course of time, she had the chance to evolve to the more conservative position that she's in now and stronger position.
Would you describe her as a rhino anymore?
No. Once President Trump got in, it really opened people's eyes to say we need a fighter.
Stefanik's turn toward Trumpism mirrors the evolution of her North Country district. In the 5 years before Stefanik was elected in 2014, Democrat Bill Owens was the congressman here. Counties like St. Lawrence and Franklin voted for Barack Obama in 2012, then swung dramatically to Trump in 2016 and 2020, part of a tectonic shift of voters in largely white, rural areas across the country.
I think it shows that President Trump and the Make America Great movement has really expanded today's Republican Party. People who felt that they've been left behind by the status quo in Washington.
The massive, newly drawn 21st District stretches from the outskirts of Albany, across the Adirondacks, edging along Vermont and Canada. I spoke with voters in communities from Ogdensburg to Saranac Lake and Malone to Cobleskill. Stefanik is popular here.
Elise is someone we can trust and someone that we can rely on.
I like the freedoms that she stands for. I like that she's not overbearing.
Traveling across the district, I found many Stefanik detractors as well, who were not shy about sharing their opinions. Many of them arguing that, yes, she has changed, but not for the better. Take Christine Leo, who I met over eggs and toast in Messina. A Democrat, Leo says she once voted for Stefanik.
I did like her in the beginning, but when Trump became president, she became such a Trump follower that she acts like him now. And it kind of turned me off her.
Others see Stefanik as putting her pursuit of power first and foremost.
When the Republican Party was more of a governing party, she was part of that. And that now has become more of an authoritarian party, she's part of that.
I think she's more interested in the power that she can get and moving up in the Republican Party than she is representing the people.
Asked what she's accomplished in Congress, Stefanik cites her work securing funding for rural hospitals in Fort Drum, pushing to reopen the northern border as the pandemic eased, and updating the North American Free Trade Agreement. In Washington, though, it's her political moves that have people talking. Last year, Republican House members voted to replace Congresswoman Liz Cheney with Stefanik as GOP conference chair, in part because of her allegiance to Trump. Her new role will boost her clout in the House if Republicans regain the majority in November. Asked if they think she's evolved, her Republican colleagues on Capitol Hill say she's reflecting her voters.
We have to represent our constituents' viewpoints and values, and that's what she's doing, that's what I'm doing.
This is how Stefanik answers the question.
Do you think you've changed at all?
No, I've been a hardworking, strong conservative voice since I ran for office. I've always strived to give this district a seat at the table at the highest levels, and I'm going to continue doing that, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
Many voters here seem fine with Stefanik's new role as a fierce Trump warrior. Political handicappers rate her a solid favorite to win re-election.